groups were formed in Pakistan, like TTP, or there were other groups who were undertaking activities, terrorist activities in Pakistan. And when Pakistani authorities undertook operations and pursued them, they used to take shelter in Afghanistan. But in last 3 years or so, or 2.5 years or 3 years or so, things have not moved according to our expectations. And gaps between Pakistan and Afghanistan at the government level, at our institutions level, have increased. There are allegations, there are counter allegations from both sides instead of cooperation. We should establish channels of dialogue, put pressure on them. That kind of approach can lead to hopefully a better response from the Afghan side. There are terrorist sleeper elements present within Pakistan. There is a porous border, and there are people who are taking shelter on the Afghan side. So it's all in all, it's a very complex issue. Afghanistan moves towards normalization of its relations with the international community by addressing not only issues of security and terrorism, but also inclusivity, women rights, women education, and all those issues, so that Afghanistan doesn't go back to the era where it was in 1990s or earlier when jihad or other militancy issues were there.
India is also based in Afghanistan through its proxies, and the biggest proxy is TTP. There are established reports that these TTP and other militant organizations are receiving militant training, weapons, ammunition, and financial support from India.
It is therefore my own feeling and my own assessment has been very firm that we have to give dialogue another chance.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello and welcome to Insight in B News English. So security situation, particularly terrorism, is on rise in Pakistan, particularly in Pakistan's border areas with Afghanistan. Two provinces of Pakistan, mainly Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, are under heavy terrorism attack by the banned militant organizations which are based in Afghanistan. Particularly KP province is under massively attacked by these militant organizations, and there are frequent terrorist attacks on urban areas in KP province with their links with the militant organizations in Afghanistan. Recently, a telephone call of TTP top militant leader Haji Noor Bali was intercepted, in which he was clearly giving instructions to his commanders to carry out strikes, militant attacks, terrorist attacks on multiple locations in Pakistan. After that call, its forensic was also carried out, which established that this call was genuine. And afterwards, government is now considering legal action against Haji Noor Bali. And on the other hand, there are a number of other groups which are based in Afghanistan, particularly related to different TTP factions. And Gul Bahadur group is among them, which is also planning several militant, subversive, terrorist activities in Pakistan. Situation is serious. Afghanistan's charge d'affaires last week was summoned to Pakistani Foreign Ministry, and Pakistan lodged a strong protest with him. To discuss these all things, linkages of terrorism with Afghanistan, and what is the response of Afghan authorities, and what used to be the attitude and response of Afghan authorities, we are joined by renowned senior analyst, former ambassador of Pakistan to Kabul, Mr. Mansoor Ahmed Khan. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to Program Inside, Ambassador Mansoor Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mateen Haider Saab. It's a pleasure joining your program. And
it's always a pleasure to have you. As I said, that what are your thoughts if we look into this security situation in Pakistan, particularly in KP and Balochistan, precisely on Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province? Almost for the last 1 month, there have been dozens of terrorist attacks on Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in border areas, and most of the attacks have been planned from across the border. Militants cross over They come with ID-laden vehicles, explosive vehicles, and the most recent incident is Banu incident, about which Director General of Inter-Services Public Relations, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif, also spoke in a media briefing. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think these militant organizations are based over there? But it is in the knowledge of the Afghan authorities, but Afghan authorities are not taking any serious action. Situation is becoming worse day by day. Ambassador Mansoor sir.
The security situation has been no doubt very serious, and it has continued to become more and more serious and more grave in with the passage of time. The problems on Pakistan-Afghanistan border have continued for now many decades, but in recent years, particularly in past 7, 8, 10 years, particularly during the last decade of the US and NATO forces presence here, militancy, cross-border terrorism, these activities had increased, and groups were formed in Pakistan like TTP, or there were other groups who were undertaking terrorist activities in Pakistan. And when Pakistani authorities undertook operations and pursued them, they used to take shelter in Afghanistan. That problem was, Pakistan raised this problem with previous governments. But when Taliban came into power, they took over Afghanistan in August 2021. Since then, Pakistan has been very seriously taking up this issue with Afghan Taliban also. And initially, there was an expectation when we took up this matter with them in 2021. There was an optimism that somehow the talks sponsored by them would lead to some kind of arrangement with TTP and
some positive conclusion, something like that.
But in last 3 years or so, or 2.5 years or 3 years or so, things have not moved according to our expectations. And gaps between Pakistan and Afghanistan at the government level, at our institutions level, have increased. Initially, Afghan side used to give some assurances to Pakistan, but in recent year or past few months, we have seen that there is tit for tat. There are allegations, there are counter allegations from both sides instead of cooperation. Now, after recently, when the two sides had a meeting in Doha, when our special representative...
Exactly, Doha Afghan conference.
So
exactly.
I think there is some hope that maybe there is some talk between the two sides at official level. I think it is important that we should restore the channels with Afghan interim government and discuss these issues with them, because for moving forward and for addressing this issue of terrorism, which has historic roots, which has been there for past several decades, it's a complex issue. It will be very difficult for Pakistan to deal with it unilaterally. We will in any case need cooperation of the Afghan interim government. We may have concerns with that, but those concerns should be addressed through a dialogue. So my own view is that we should establish channels of dialogue, put pressure on them, and then maybe some incentives also in trade and movement of people and normalization of relations. That kind of approach can lead to hopefully a better response from the Afghan side. The situation is very serious. There are terrorist sleeper elements present within Pakistan. There is a porous border, and there are people who are taking shelter on the Afghan side. So it's all in all, it's a very complex issue.
Ambassador Saab, you rightly said that this security situation and terrorism attacks from across the border on the Western Front is a very serious, complex issue. And as you said, that dialogue should be promoted, but Pakistan hosted Afghan authorities. Afghan interim foreign minister has been twice to Islamabad. Then several top officials went to Kabul. As far as dialogue is concerned, there have been no disconnection. But what do you think? What is the cold? Why the attitude of the Afghan authorities is so cold? Do you think it's a trust deficit? It's something our top military leadership have visited Kabul. Their foreign minister, their leaders have been on a frequent visit to Pakistan since they took over Kabul. Despite these all close coordination, dialogue, official level meeting, why Kabul is reluctant to take action against banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP?
Yes, there is an issue of trust deficit also there. When Taliban took over Afghanistan and they established their own government, Afghan interim government, immediately after that, Pakistan formally took up that matter with them, very seriously with them. And Afghan Taliban assured their help to Pakistan. They said that their top leadership said that they want to resolve this issue for Pakistan, but they also said that since these people of TTP who are taking shelter on Afghan side, they are Pakistanis, therefore Pakistan will have to engage with them. And that was the background of why talks were held between our security teams and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan commanders there in the beginning of 2022, in the first half of 2022. But gradually when these talks took place, there were some points in the agenda where there was no progress. There was some progress on some points, but there were some points which were non-negotiable for Pakistan side also. And after that, the gaps started to increase. On the one hand, between Pakistan authorities and TTP, and on the other hand, between Pakistan's government and Afghan government. And I think it was important that channels of communication, dialogue should have been maintained, because in state-to-state relations, it often happens that we are stuck in stalemates, we are stuck in situations where expected level of progress is not taking place. But then this was an important dialogue, we should have continued. At one point, at some point in time last year, I think, there was total breakdown in communications, and that was the time where things started, really aggravating. I think even now, since as I mentioned that recently the two sides tried to touch base with each other again, I think the two sides will have to go to a dialogue, and it is also in the interest of Afghan interim government or Afghanistan in general to deal with this issue. There are some complex ideological issues also, because when Afghan Taliban were fighting their insurgency against the occupation of US
foreign
and
forces, exactly, foreign forces.
Yes, at that time, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan provided them full help in border areas, full support in the border. And therefore, when Taliban came into power in Afghanistan, TTP formally announced its allegiance to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan leadership. So that, given that factor, I think it is all the more important for Pakistan to deal with this issue, keeping in view this sensitivity, so that the issue is handled in a political manner, in a tactful manner, in a skillful manner, while also ensuring border controls and kinetic actions on our own soil.
Ambassador Mansoor Saab, you rightly pointed out, share with us that you had a frequent meetings with Taliban authorities. Tell us how many terrorists which are wanted by Pakistan. If you remember some information or data, please do share with our viewers how many top terrorists which are wanted by the government of Pakistan, and these terrorists are involved in various heinous acts of terrorism in Pakistan.
When Taliban took over, Afghanistan went into vacuum. You remember that Afghan Taliban occupied provinces one after another, and then finally took over Kabul. There was no formal government. US and NATO withdrew. They also released all the prisoners, whether they were political prisoners or whether they were security
criminals
or terrorist criminals. They all of them, because jails broke down and these people released. So number of such people who belong to an extremist or terrorist group, whether concerning Pakistan or whether concerning other neighbors of Afghanistan, whether it was relating to ETIM or IUM or Daesh, that number increased. And at that time, in the last 6 months of 2021 and in beginning of 2022, I remember several thousand fighters or commanders of such banned groups were there in Afghanistan. But they belong to different groups. One of the reasons why, as you asked the last question also, why the desired progress has not taken place is also limitation of Afghan Taliban or Afghan interim government. Because of the presence of these large number of terrorist groups in different parts of Afghanistan, and particularly the threat that comes to Afghan interim government from Daesh, Afghan authorities are apprehensive or reluctant of taking a strong military action against, say, TTP or any other group, because in that case they fear that if their military action doesn't produce results, these fighters and these groups will join hands with Daesh and other terrorist groups like ETIM or IUM or terrorist groups relating to Iran. And that is a very, very genuine concern of them, because Afghanistan has been, shelter ground for such kind of extremist and terrorist groups or such kind of militant groups for past several decades. So, Afghan interim government, Afghan Taliban, since they are actually at the moment engaged with the international community for their recognition, for their normalization of relations, they also want to show to the world that they are fully in control of security. They have full control over entire territory of Afghanistan, and they don't want to create a situation where any of these groups, whether it is TTP or BLA or ETIM or IUM, starts or Daesh starts some kind of encroachment on the territorial side of Afghanistan. So I think that sensitivity is there, but still I think if Pakistan forcefully takes up this matter with Afghan interim government and then maintains those channels of communication, because we are two neighbor countries, we have to have state-to-state relations with Afghanistan. Whatever government is there in Kabul, we have to have relations with them, at least on the issues of day-to-day importance. So I think it is important that we should go back to taking up this issue through channels of dialogue.
Yes, channels of dialogue must be kept open. But Ambassador Mansoor Saab, recently last month's report by United Nations Sanctions Committee's monitoring report that also appeared. And it's a very serious report. United States is one of the permanent member of the UN Security Council. So what do you think? That document has validated Pakistan's concern, and whatever you said, that there are number of terrorist organizations, and the same was taken into consideration by the UN Sanctions Committee report. So after that report, what do you think? What could be the action by the Western countries, particularly United States, because the report has been submitted before United Nations Security Council?
You are absolutely right. This report, not only this report, but all the reports which have been released by United Nations or other international fora after August 2021, when Taliban took over, they have been indicating the rise in strength and presence of these groups and their activities in Afghanistan, and not in Afghanistan, but through Afghanistan into other territories, and particularly Pakistan. So this Pakistan's position on that account is fully validated. Now, Afghan interim government at the same time is also engaged with international community. It is engaged with neighboring countries formally, and it is also engaged with United States through and other members of international community through their representatives in Doha, through their Afghan embassies are based in Doha. So regular engagement is there between Afghanistan, Afghan Taliban authorities and international community. And this matter is being taken up by all these countries, particularly United States, even China and all other countries. But again, all these countries are moving forward gradually, step by step, so that Afghanistan comes into the fold of normalization. Afghanistan moves towards normalization of its relations with the international community by addressing not only issues of security and terrorism, but also inclusivity, women rights, women education, and all those issues, so that Afghanistan doesn't go back to the era where it was in 1990s or earlier when jihad or other militancy issues were there. So that is an approach which Pakistan also needs to consider in terms of strengthening its dialogue and putting pressure on Afghan interim government through these international channels. One is the channel of United Nations and international community who are issuing these reports on periodical basis. All these reports are validating Pakistan's point of view. Then another channel is kind of trilateral fora between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran, because Iran and China also share borders with Afghanistan, and they also have similar concerns. This will ensure engagement at regional level. Central Asian countries also have similar concerns if you talk about Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. So I think, but then when you talk about a dialogue between the two states, then it has to be a comprehensive dialogue. I think the gap is in the dialogue where we are stressing on security issues, and Afghanistan is instead stressing upon or emphasizing on movement of people and economic issues. I think if all these issues are combined into a holistic agenda, and we should press on security issues, but at the same time also give assurances towards normalization of movement of people in a documented manner, but facilitative movement of people, and similarly facilitation of trade and transit, normalization of conditions at Turkham, Chaman, and other border crossing points. This kind of approach, I think, is being also followed by other neighbors, including China and Iran. And that kind of approach has more potential to bring results than only a security-oriented approach where, it is very difficult. We have seen that it becomes very difficult to pressurize a group like Afghan Taliban who have spent their lives in, fighting.
Ambassador Mansoor Saab, there are several international projects which are in progress in Pakistan, particularly under CPAC. And Pakistan has already offered connectivity and CPAC extension to Afghanistan. But in this prevailing situation, when Afghan authorities are extremely non-cooperative, so this dream of peace and connectivity and development cannot be fulfilled. So, and on the other hand, Pakistan is suffering. Pakistani people, civil, military, they are coming under attacks and paying the huge price of this particular war. So Pakistan has said it will not compromise on its security. So what options we are left then? Diplomatic options have been exhausted. As you also mentioned about dialogue, there have been several rounds of dialogue. What options Pakistan? Can Pakistan go for military strikes against these safe havens?
I think CPEC is a very good example. Pakistan and China both have launched second phase of CPEC this year. And this will mean that China will be, in the coming years, investing a huge amount in infrastructure, energy, and other projects in Pakistan under CPEC in the coming years. Then China and Pakistan have continued to pursue in recent years that CPEC should be extended to Afghanistan also. Now, for CPEC, for strengthening CPEC in Pakistan or for extension of CPEC to Afghanistan, security is a vital element. So I think it is an important condition not only for Pakistan but for China as well as Afghanistan also, that security is there so that CPEC projects can take root in Pakistan. CPEC projects can then be extended to Afghanistan. So far, Chinese engineers or Chinese workers have been targeted on CPEC related projects through terrorism coming from either Pakistan or through cross-border terrorism by groups that are based in Afghanistan. So I think it is important if Pakistan, China, Afghanistan cooperation is also strengthened, and the issue of how to resolve this security dilemma is discussed in a very serious and in a very focused manner. Pakistan has to take all the security measures on its sides of the border for protecting its own interests. Pakistan reserves the right to take all possible actions, but I think unless the situation is so dire, I think the option of taking action, military action on the other side of the border should be avoided, because it will constitute violation of international law. It will further aggravate Pakistan's relations with Afghanistan, and it will create complications in an already complex relationship. So I think it is therefore my own feeling and my own assessment has been very firm that we have to give dialogue another chance. Dialogue and uninterrupted
Give dialogue another chance.
Yes. So
okay, Ambassador Mansoor Saab, so in this entire scenario, India is also based in Afghanistan through its proxies, and the biggest proxy is TTP. There are established reports that these TTP and other militant organizations are receiving militant training, weapons, ammunition, and financial support from India. How this Indian connection of terrorism in Afghanistan, which ultimately goes against Pakistan, how it could be cut off? While you were ambassador over there have been many reports that came to your knowledge as well.
Indian connection has been there for providing financial and other logistical support to TTP and other groups who are involved in actions against Pakistan, involved in terrorism against Pakistan. And now the only way of dealing with Indian involvement after 15th August 2021, when Taliban took over Afghanistan, for some time Indians withdrew from Afghanistan, and Indian embassy and Indian presence was at a very low level, or India was even absent for some time. But later in 2022, they have revived their embassies and consulates there, and they are working at a low level. And of course, they will not spare any opportunity of investing their resources, which can be damaging to Pakistan, by supporting TTP or any other groups who have an agenda against Pakistan. Now, it is therefore more important for Pakistan that Pakistan should not be leaving any vacuum in terms of severing its engagement with Afghan authorities, with Afghan security institutions, because any vacuum left by Pakistan will be exploited by Indians against Pakistan. Therefore, I think it is important that Pakistan should continue to highlight as to how India has been supporting Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan in an anti-Pakistan agenda, and Pakistan should also continue to share these information through our channels with Afghan authorities, and we should try to keep our bilateral channels so effective that we remain alert to such possibilities, such machinations by India against Pakistan, and we are able to effectively deal with them. Pakistan is the first and the most important neighbor of Afghanistan, as it has 2,600 kilometer long border. India is not an immediate neighbor of Afghanistan. India is is in the region, but it is not an immediate neighbor. So I think there Pakistan has an advantage because of connectivity with the people of Afghanistan, because of the cultural and religious connections Pakistan has there, because of the tribal connections Pakistan has there, and then economic dependence of Afghanistan can be used by Pakistan in a very positive and constructive manner to strengthen the relations. That is why I always continue to emphasize that these are the factors which Pakistan can use for creating such stakes which make it difficult for Afghanistan to go against Pakistan, and which make it difficult for other exploiters who want to invest in Afghanistan for damaging Pakistan.
Last thing, and a very precise answer, we expect that the hearts and the minds of the young Afghan youth is filled with a very poisonous approach towards Pakistan. Why it is so? Because Pakistan fed this youth. They got education in Pakistan. They got health facilities in Pakistan. And I would particularly refer to the past incidents in United Kingdom, then a recent incident in Frankfurt where Pakistani consulate came under attack. And there have been frequent protests outside Pakistan embassy in Kabul. Why Afghan youth and people are anti-Pakistani despite our massive investment on human resource development in Afghanistan?
Since late 1990s or mid 1990s, you can say in the past 3 decades, Pakistan's image in Afghanistan has suffered a lot, and we see that more and more people have been, raising voices against Pakistan at the media, at international fora, and particularly when US and NATO sponsored governments were in Afghanistan, whether it was government of Hamid Karzai or Ghani, huge amount was spent by many countries, and particularly again India in Afghanistan, in changing or in influencing the minds of young Afghan youth. That is why despite Pakistan doing so much for its Afghan brothers in terms of providing support for education, for health, and even millions of Afghans today are living in Pakistan.
Still in Pakistan, exactly.
They are still in Pakistan, and these connections will continue to be there because of this large or long border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. But we have seen, unfortunately, that some negative sentiments about Pakistan have also continued to increase. We saw a manifestation, I think yesterday, in terms of attack or mob attack on Pakistani consulate in Frankfurt. I think these 3 decades of turmoil in Afghanistan have, on the one hand, affected peace and stability in Afghanistan, but on the other hand, they have also affected the bonds between people-to-people bonds between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I think that is why it is important that the two countries should start focusing on their relationship, building a relationship, strengthening a relationship once again, so that these negative forces could also be brought under control, because Pakistan and Afghanistan have to live together. They are neighbors, and they have to be. They will be here. They are here today. They have been here for past several centuries. They will, inshallah, continue to be here for the coming generations. I think that is why it is important that people-to-people relations, investment in people
should be improved. Exactly. Thank you so much indeed, former Ambassador of Pakistan to Afghanistan, Mansoor Ahmed Khan. And what he said, dear listeners and dear viewers, that people-to-people contacts should be enhanced. The trust deficit that exists between Pakistan and Afghanistan, that trust deficit has to be removed through frequent contacts between two governments, through frequent dialogue, and of course, again, all channels of communication between Kabul and Islamabad should remain open, so that if there is any misunderstanding in the minds of the Afghan people or the Afghan government, that should be removed. And through dialogue, the issue of terrorism and militancy could also be addressed. Once again, Ambassador Mansoor Ahmed Khan, thank you so much for speaking to Program Insight in V News English.
Thank you very much, Mutin. Thank you, sir.